Well, I've always really wanted to make myself a mutant. Here to look at the brand new Playmates, Tales from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutations Mix and Match Turtles. I figured in this review we would actually look at all four of the Turtle brothers, and this comes to us courtesy of the folks over at Playmates that sent these my way. These should be available right now in stores if you guys are interested and big fans of the Turtles. Again, we are going to be looking at these all individually, but I figured we would start things off first by looking at the actual packaging itself. The selling thing of this set is the fact that each one of these actually give you mutant parts that you can swap out with the existing Turtles. We are also as well, once eventually I do get these all opened up, I'm going to bring back in the other Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures so you guys can see if there's going to be differences between the two. There seems to be slightly different head sculpts, and they looks like they've also added some additional armor pieces that weren't on the original releases. Not only do they have then swappable parts for the mutants, but they, of course, the Turtles also come included with their trademark weapons. On the back of each one of the individual packages, when a fearsome new foe emerges in New York, the Turtles must lend a hand to their allies. Literally, you can mix and match figures to create your own mutations and carry out important missions. Here's on the side, show you how to swap in and out the parts. Of course, all the Turtles down below here. The four Turtles are featured, as well as Splinter, Bishop and Mech, Metalhead, and Mechanoid. I like the look of both Bishop and Mech and Mechanoid. I'd like to get my hands eventually on those. But again, these are all sold separately. You can also as well follow them over on YouTube at www.youtube.com/TMNT for new webisodes and more. What I'm going to do though, and by the way, actually just before we actually open these up, the one thing I did also want to mention too is that I noticed there were a couple of duplicate pieces. Like for example, you'll see Donatello does have Metalhead's head. Leo's also has that as well. I'm not sure if it's a case that these are randomly added accessories, because you would imagine, though, the tray, I mean, even though looking at Metalhead's head, it doesn't seem to be sitting inside a portion of the tray that's shaped specifically for his head. I'm wondering if it is the case that they're randomly mixing around the accessories, or like for a case like this, Donatello will always have Metalhead's head, as well as for Leo. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these all opened up. We're going to get a closer look at the Playmates, Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mix and Match Mutations. So let's grab the tape measure now and see how tall these figures stand. Obviously, the Turtles are mostly of the same height, except for Raphael. He's the tallest of the bunch. Measuring the more average-sized turtle like Leonardo, they're going to be about 4 inches in height, or about 10 centimeters tall. As though for Raphael's going to be more closer to 4.5 inches in height, or about 11 centimeters tall. And then, of course, let's bring in the original Tales from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figure so you guys can see. They're going to be about roughly the same size. One thing, though, I did notice about the new Mutations Turtles is that they do sacrifice some additional posability that we'll talk more about in a moment. Leonardo with Leonardo, Donnie with Donnie, Raph and Raph, and then finally, of course, here's what he looks like with Michelangelo, the two different versions of him. I am happy, though, to see that the Mix and Match Mutations Turtles have not only swappable mutation parts, but also quite a lot of accessories as well. For each one of them, also, they seem to have peg placements on the fronts of their belts. So, like, for example, any one of these accessories, for example, you can attach onto them. Leo's comes, for example, for his accessory, a tonfa. And with these, if you look at the actual Turtles, see on the front of the belt, they have pegs. The pegs are fairly hardened plastic, too. And he's got 3 in the front, and then he's got a couple on the back there as well. And there's also some storage place as well for his wakizashi swords. But any one of these, by the way, because like the tonfa has, for example, a little hole in the end, you just plug it onto their belt. Some of them may look a little bit more awkward depending on how long the length is, for example, the weapons, but they all seem to have some decent storage. So Leo does come with that. As already mentioned, he does also come as wakizashi sword. You could also say the katana swords, but I mean the blades are fairly short on these. Bringing in the original Leonardo's sword, so you guys can see, they seem to be a little bit longer in length. So maybe the original one was a wakizashi sword, and then this one is more a katana. They're molded, though, in all gray plastic. So that's one thing, though, about the new Mix and Match Mutations Turtles, is that, like, all of their accessories, for the most part, are all basically just molded in gray plastic. The only real exception to that is actually Donnie's staff. Surprisingly, he is the one that stands out like a sore thumb, because his accessory is actually colored in the original color. Well, somewhat in close in colors. So like Leonardo does come included with, again, katanas or wakizashi swords. You can either store them in his hands, or again, he's got some storage space on the back of his body. You just take the swords like this, for example, and just holster them on the sides. And nice to see that. He also comes with other accessories, too. I'm going to probably find myself picking up the Turtles a couple of times here. A couple of smaller bladed weapons, for example. These ones, again, have the holes there. He also gets himself 3 shurikens. Funny, though, enough that all the shurikens that come included with each of the turtles are all different from one another. So you'll never see the same shuriken again, obviously, just other than the 3 that we get with each turtle. So he gets 3 of those, and then, of course, he gets the mix and match mutation parts. But again, just to show you, you can take those little shurikens. Shurikens are the ones that kind of look the most natural, though, I feel, on the turtles' bodies. You can do that, or again, if you want to take the little blade weapon, that fits on there as well. But again, like, some of them work a little bit better in better places than others. Again, that can plug onto the back. Again, storage space everywhere on these turtles. Leonardo, though, for his mix and match parts, he comes included with 2 parts, one belonging, though, to Splinter, and then the other one belonging to Metalhead. Metalhead will see this head sculpt again as we look at pretty much the turtle right next to him, because he has the exact same head sculpt. Again, it's kind of strange, though, because if all the 4 turtles have those dedicated parts, in other words, they're not going to be randomly selecting different parts for the different packages, then I don't know why, though, that Leonardo and Donatello would have then the exact same head sculpt for Metalhead. One thing also, too, I wanted to bring back in the original Turtles, there is obviously a different head sculpt with all of them, actually. They're a little bit more squared off on the original Tales from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're a little more rounded, though, with the mix and match mutations. Something also that they unfortunately suffer with now is that where the original ones would have had elbow hinges and knee hinges, the newer turtles, by more living up to the gimmick of pulling off the parts and swapping around the parts, they don't seem to have knee articulation. They don't either have elbow posability. And the limbs themselves are also a little bit more, I don't want to say gummier, but a little bit more of a softer plastic. He has more armor also on his body, and one thing they've also changed too is that they've matched the coloring with the coloring of the bandanas. So the original Leo would have had, say, a yellow L. The newer Leonardo would have now had a blue. He's also got some additional, like a belt there around the bottom end of his shell. I don't know why that's there, for example. He does also have himself a shoulder pad spike and an elbow pad, whereas the original turtle didn't have that. So there's obviously some few changes there. If you are probably asking yourselves, well, the thing about these is that you pull off the parts and you mix them around. It doesn't even have to really be the ones that belong with that particular turtle. If you want to say, for example, use other parts for over there, like Bishop and Neck, for example, you could use that. They all use basically the same universal size ball joint. Unfortunately, though, if you had the ideas that you could then mix and match the parts, one thing I did notice, though, popping off Leonardo's head sculpt here, is if you look at the ball socket here, and then you look at the ball socket or the ball joint for Leonardo's, it's the wrong size. You can't pull these off, for example, even though, again, it's really difficult to do this. You can't pull them off. You can't change the parts around because there's no way they're no way they're going to fit. I do wish in a way that they could have used the same universally sized ball joints. I think the problem really faults in more the original Tales from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles line because, snap that back in place, had they only just made a smaller, more reasonably sized ball joint, then you could at least have changed out the head sculpts. One thing also, too, is when you're looking at the heads, where it attaches onto the ball joint of the neck, the head is on its own. There's nothing attached on with it. The neck, though, with the mixed and matched mutations turtles, you can see the neck is actually part of the head. So when you do look at the turtles just in their defaulted state, before you even start to mix and match the parts around, you'll notice, though, like the heads and the arms, for example, become a little more visible where the ball joints attach them. See, there's a little bit more of a gap there. There's a gap in the arms, for example, and then, well, the legs aren't going to be as much the issue. And there's also peg holes in the bottoms of their feet. All of the turtles, by the way, have the same levels of posability. I guess we'll kind of run through it right now with Leonardo's. The head's going to be on ball joint. So yeah, it does rotate all the way around. It looks up, looks down. You know, all the things that give you all the things that a ball joint would grant you. Ball joints in the arms, nothing in the elbows, nothing in the hands, and then ball joints legs, ball joint in the legs. That's it. That's all you're going to be getting. So 5 points of articulation. As for the parts, though, that make up Leo's mix and match parts, already mentioned, he does have the head sculpt there for Metalhead. Metalhead, though, is one of the included figures that are of the mix and match persuasion. Bishop and Metalhead, and of course, Mechazoid are all the ones. I'd love to get my hands on those. And again, those would all have mix and match parts. So let's say, for example, I mean, without even looking at all the other ones, delving into the other ones that come included with the turtles, if you did want to change out the parts, you just pop off Metalhead, or pop off Leo's head, pop on then Metalhead's head, and then because we got this side for Splinter, I mean, obviously you could put it on this side, but if you're going to be making yourself mutants, you want to at least line up things correctly. Just pop on Splinter's arm, and now you got yourself a mix and match mutant. And again, if you really wanted to, I mean, like, it doesn't have to necessarily be the ones that came included with Leonardo. If you want to use, for example, the one that came included with Michelangelo, like Mechanoids, just, you know, again, you could, well, yeah, do it. Okay. You can pop off the head, and then you can just replace it with any one of those heads, because they're all using universally sized ball joints. So that's Leonardo. Pop the head back in place. We'll pop the arms off here, and we'll just pop the new arm in place. So there's Leonardo. Let's move then on to Donatello. And again, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time with all of the individual accessories just because, again, like there's so much here to cover. I did kind of want to really look at these all in the same review. I can get these all to stand. There we go. Kind of all wanted to look at these in the same review. Donatello does come included with like his headphones, which the original Donatello would have had as well. It's not quite the same headphones. These are actually a little bit more of a softer plastic too. Donatello also comes included with a pipe staff. And actually looking on the back of his body too. So he's got a slot here. So like you could just put your regular staff slid into there. He's got a peg right there. And then of course he's got pegs all over his body. So if you want to take, for example, the pipe will just... Pipe seems to be the best place to plug right here. Because if you're putting it in any other place, he's just going to be dragging. I mean, look at just the length of this alone. If you pegged it down here, it would only just be dragging it behind him. The figure also as well comes included with the staff. And again, his staff is the only thing that really is different. All the other ones are molded in gray plastic. Donnie somehow gets blessed by having an orange sculpted staff. And again, that just slots onto the back. So there's like a little opening here. The plastic is also pretty soft too, so it makes things very easy to actually get him to hold the weapons. I feel like almost in a case like this, he would have worked a little bit better having a gray staff. I think the brown looks a little out of place, especially considering all his other brothers around him have just the regular gray accessories. He also comes included with a couple of shurikens. I did mention earlier that the shurikens are all going to be different from one another. So Leonardo's was a little smaller. Donnie's is more triangular, a little bit bigger and bulkier too. And again, I know we've kind of going to be looking at this a couple of times. Pegs, like there's what, three in the front, another 4 in the back, and then there's one on the top there. So again, like you can just put these anywhere that you want. This made those sound a little repetitive as we kind of go through the remaining of these reviews. The other thing that Donnie does have, get him just to stand here. The other thing that they also do have too, in this case for Donnie, there we go, is that he also once again gets Metalhead's head, which again, like just seems a little out of place considering that Leo, we just finished having a look at him. It's the exact same head sculpt. It's nothing really different there. He also comes as well with the robotic arm. I think that's the robotic arm belonging to Mechazoid. Again, very soft and plastic, no posability at all possessing in any of these. And then he also, again, has these shurikens. Getting a close look at Donatello. We're going to bring back in the original Tales and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Donatello. Again, a more squared off head sculpt. A little more rounded here with the newer release. He's also got, again, he has his little fanny pack. That's one thing that hasn't changed. Although the fanny pack is a little bit different. The original one would have been purple. The newer one is now in blue. The Donatello symbol, for example, is now purple. The original one would have had it in yellow. And again, some just additional armor that the original one wouldn't have had. Don't even consider swapping out the heads. We've already looked at the fact that you can't. Again, a little bit more limited on the articulation front of things, but the sell of this obviously is geared more towards kids that you can mix and match the parts. So again, we just pop off Donatello's arms. We'll pop the... Oh, did I do it on the wrong side? I want to make sure at least we got it on the right side here. Going to pop the other arm off there, and we'll take the arm from Mechazoid, and we'll just plug it in place. I think actually this is the one that works a little bit most with the turtle, just because, again, like robotic arms, he's all about inventions. Probably would make the most sense that, of course, he's going to have sooner or later, if he happens to have his arm cut off, he's got himself now a robotic arm instead. We'll just put the figure down right there. On to now Raphael, and just there we go. On to Raphael's accessories. Of course, he's going to come included with his sai. I did also, not to drop it, I just want to grab the sai that off. I have all the pile of the other TMNT accessories over to the side. A little more squared off, a lot smaller and simpler of a sai with the original release. He gets a much more kind of meaner looking pair of sai. The sai also do holster, although they don't holster on the front of his body. There's actually holsters on the back, which is, I think, the one and only times we actually got ourselves a Raphael where his accessories don't holster in the place that you normally would expect them. Raphael, with the original release, has the holsters there to the front, where you can then loop in the sais on the sides. He doesn't have it. He doesn't have it on the back. It's a little bit different this time around for this version of Raphael. He also gets himself a pair, I guess, of brass knucks. Brass knucks molded nicely there in gray plastic. He also gets a pipe, similar though, although not as long as Donatello's. A little peg there, peg hole on all these, so again you can plug those in place. Figure also gets himself a couple of shurikens, which again aren't the same as Donatello's. If I can hold on to all of these, definitely not the same. Definitely not the same as Leonardo's. I can't even grab Leonardo's. There it is, right there. Leonardo's small, the baby bear. Then you got Papa Bear in the middle, Mama Bear on the side. I don't know why we're comparing bears, the shurikens, but there you go. All molded there in gray plastic. And again, like, have we done this already enough times? Yeah, you can plug these in place anywhere you want. He also has one hole right here too, one peg right there. So even though it'd probably be a little bit more awkward, close in quarters, you can also put a shuriken up there as well. I'm not really sure what I would put up there. What would make sense so close to his head like this? The brass knucks are about the only thing actually that doesn't have a peg hole, but you can most definitely though put it into his hands. You can also use these accessories too. While the heads unfortunately aren't universally sized, you could at least use though the accessories with the other turtles too. So like say for example, just put Raphael down here. If we have the original Raphael, you can also get the brass knucks and fit them into his hand as well. So that's one thing at least. They can share around the wealth of all these extra accessories. For his swappable parts, this is a little disturbing. He comes with a severed head of Splinter. Glasses there on the front of Splinter's head. Nice molded head sculpt. And again, they plug in place because they're all using the same sized holes. He also does come include with the leg of Metalhead. So really between Donatello or Donatello or Leonardo for that matter, you basically get like the head and the leg. I think, in fact, all of the figures come with... No, maybe that's not true. Mechazoid does come include with one arm, which was the arm... what was it, the arm? Oh, Donatello. That's right, Donatello. And then I think that all of them, pretty much all the characters, have like 2 accessories from the other character. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. And then, like I said, if you did want to change these out, it's just a case of popping off the arm. Or I guess in this case, one thing we can do a little bit different is we can pop off the leg. This is the first time. The arms and the legs, by the way, or even for that matter, the head, are all, again, same sized holes. So even if you want to just mix and match the mutated parts with their own figures, you can just then, although it's a little awkward, I mean, who's going to be able to walk around fighting crime like this? He's going to be like hobbling around on his arm. But again, like you can just mix and match these parts this way as well. So we'll just pop that off, put that back on where it belongs. And then let's take the leg here for Metalhead, and Metalhead's legs. Actually, you know what? It's supposed to go on the other way. There we go. Pop this other leg off, swap it with Metalhead's leg. Where it looks a little more awkward, though, is when you start to deal with legs. Legs, though, obviously with Metalhead, they're going to be a little more shorter and stumpier, and still using soft plastic, too. He's going to have a little more of a peg leg here. I mean, it would be next to impossible for him to be running around the alleyways or even the sewers, for that matter, with one leg notably longer than the other. We'll just pop that off. Articulation, again, on Raphael is going to be the exact same as the other 2 that we've already had a look at, so no need to really cover off the territory. Oh, one thing, too. I want to show you guys what the head sculpt, though, looks like for Raphael compared to the original Raphael. He seems a little more calmer and a little more at ease with the mix and match mutations Raphael versus the more grimaced face that we got in the original Tales from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He has, again, now different bandolier armor there on the front. The R is where it would have been yellow before, is now red to match the headband and, of course, the elbow pads. Speaking of elbow pads, too, he has now armored elbow pads, whereas the original one would have had just red. And now, instead of having actually red knee pads, he has now black with little steel plates on the front of it. The last figure we're going to be looking at, though, of course, with the quartet of turtles, is the smallest, is Michelangelo. Let's just get him to stand here. Though Michelangelo comes included with, like, for example, the leg of Bishop of Mech. Though he doesn't come with the head of Bishop of Mech, he also comes included with the head sculpt for Mechazoid. And again, you can just, mix and match the parts. The figure also comes included with pretty cool looking shurikens. I like the look of these ones. More spiral. They actually kind of look like pinwheels. The ones you blow and they spin. Although you may not want to be spinning something so sharp like this in case it happens to come off. It's a little more resembling the shuriken, though, of Leonardo's, although it's much bigger. And again, yeah, they can plug in anywhere on the body of the figure. He's got like 2 pegs on the front, 2 on the side, and then he's got a little holstered section there on the back for all his for his nunchuck. Speaking of nunchuck, though, actually not quite speaking of nunchuck, there's one actually rather odd accessory that Michelangelo comes included with: a mason ball, a ball of mace. It seems a little out of place, though, for Michelangelo to be wielding around a mace like this. Does also have a hole there, so again, any one of those places that we've already had a look at. So you want to holster on the side, you can do that. You can also, too, use these accessories and just share around the wealth. You can attach those onto the other turtles, as they're all the same size. The last thing that the figure also comes included with is his nunchuck. A pair of nunchuck, and they're smaller, actually, than the original nunchuck we got from the Tales from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the initial release of Michelangelo. Much bigger, obviously much smaller, and a whole lot less paint. They at least would have gone in and painted, say, the handles, or would have been the other way around. Well, looking at that, they probably would have painted the chains. They would have just molded this all in gray plastic, and again, you can either have them fit in his hands, like that, or again, you can, if you look on the back, he's then got these little holsters where you just slide in. They've always sort of been the place like this. I mean, even like with the original Michelangelo, they also plug on the back the exact same way. The head sculpt's really between the 2. This one is actually a little more closer resembling one another, although the coloring of the plastic, you can see, he's more of a lime green color on the Tales from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Michelangelo, and a little bit more of a pastel green on the Mix and Mutations version of him. He also now, again, has the bandolier. He's got some additional, like, blades there on the sides, but they're part of the molded plastic, so you can't take those off. He now adds some additional bandages down below for his legs. The original one wouldn't have that. And instead of having, again, like elbow pads in the orange to match the bandana, he mixes those out then for the black bandana or the black elbow pads and knee pads. So there's some few changes there as well. You know, really, to look at these, the only one thing I really wish that, and I said this in the earlier end of the review, is that you could pull off the heads, for example, and swap them out with the original Turtles. It's just the one thing, unfortunately, with these that you can't do. Again, the articulation, just to cover this off one last time. Ball joints on the head, ball joints, shoulders, nothing in the elbows, nothing in the hands, and then ball joints in the legs. And again, if you wanted to mix and match the parts, because again, like he has the leg here for what, Mechazoid? No, a Bishop of Mech, and then he also has the head sculpt for Mechanoid. Again, you just pop the head off, replace it with the heads that you want to use. And the more that you collect these too, you can decide for yourself if you want to have like a robotic looking turtle. That's kind of cool. I guess there really is a robotic turtle already. His name is Metalhead. But again, it's kind of fun. Kind of fun, the idea that you can pull off the parts and mix them around. At the end of it, though, one good thing is as a kid, I mean, some of us are kids at heart. As a kid, though, the fun aspect of these is the fact that you can mix around the parts. If you are, though, like an adult collector like myself, I mean, obviously you can still stick with the idea of collecting the original Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures, because at least the ones we get from the Mix and Match Mutation line are, though, different. They're not quite the exact same. So, like, even having them on the display shelf, even if you have no intended plan down the road to mix and match the parts, you at least have different looking turtles than the original ones we got before. Big thank you once again to the folks over at Playmates that did provide the sample of the brand new Mix and Match Mutations turtles from the Tales from the Teenage Mutant Turtle line. Because of them, we had the chance to have a look at all the 4 turtles: Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo. What do you guys think of these? Let me know down below in the comments section. Is this a line that you guys could see yourselves picking up? And do you like the idea of being able to mix and match the parts? If you guys did enjoy this video, I want to throw it a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and would like to stick around for more, if you haven't already, I mean, obviously, if you already have, it makes no sense. But if, let's just say for the sake of argument, you've never subscribed to this channel, first time stumbling onto here, and you like what you see, thank you for that. Make sure you hit that subscribe. Make sure you turn on the bell. Make sure you come back, as there's more videos coming your way. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.